Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater with Her Success Story. Today is one of my most fun times. So on my team is an amazing person. Her name is Darazio. Tara and I have worked together, I'll say 3 years, I'll say 5 years, I'll say 6 years, but somehow we kind of figure it out by the ages of her kids that seem to be growing up, but we're not. Anyway, I wanted to do this podcast episode because every Monday morning after a Super Bowl for the past 5+ years, myself and my team does this download of what did we learn? Where's the lessons? Where's the leadership lessons? Where's the business lessons? There is so much to learn every day from looking at the current events and activities around us. And honestly, they are the good bit, the bad, and the ugly. And so today we're going to highlight some of the good, a lot of observations. I'm so glad you could join in and hear this, ladies and gentlemen, and especially the ladies. You don't have to be a football fan to join in this conversation. You don't have to say, hey, I don't really love sports. If anybody's been following Her Success Story for a while, I'm a dancer. Okay, we could do this same conversation around the production of the Nutcracker, and if anybody saw On Point on Disney. But today we're bringing you Tara and I's conversation from Super Bowl 55. Tara, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Ivy. And yes, this is something that we've been doing for so long, and we even text about it, during the game, after the game. So we always have a lot of things on our minds that we know we want to talk about. And there's always lessons from, as you said, whether it be a sporting event or a theater performance. I think there's so many lessons we can take just by watching people and seeing leadership in so many different areas. And I know that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm excited to jump in with you.
And I love that you shared that, because we do this, and it's myself, Tara, and our entire team. We will do this with running conversations. If it's the Emmys, if we are watching a great series, did you see this? There is so often and so many times. So, one of the great things is surround yourself with support who are as inquisitive and interested as you are.
Yes. And keeping the conversation going. And that obviously helps us build a relationship as a team. And relationship building is such a huge part of Slater Success and in networking and growing businesses. And I know one of the things we were chatting about was how Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, who had so much success together on the Patriots, have now come together on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we're watching kind of how, this very solid relationship on one team has now translated to a completely different team and winning Super Bowls on different teams. So we thought that was a really interesting point, seeing how people come back together. Gronkowski coming out of retirement, actually.
Yeah. So I was just going to jump in on that. So for those of you who are not football fans, so when Tom Brady signed with, goodness, here goes my right now. You could know I'm not. I am a dancer. When Tom Brady signed with Tampa, right? Mm-hmm. His relationships, people came out, to rally around him. Gronkowski had retired. He was out of the game for, was that a year or two?
I think at least a year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he came back because of his relationship with Brady. Mm-hmm. And, I always, as business leaders and business owners, where are we keeping up with our relationships? Where are we falling down? Relationships are not just for now, they're for always. And the people who will rally around you in good times and in times that it's important to have support, it's all about keeping up with relationships. And I thought that was an amazing lesson, mm-hmm. and an example of one.
And I think it was previous to the game, or maybe during it, that they were interviewing some Patriots fans and basically talking about how they're still supporting, Tom and his new team. And I thought that was really great too, because, people are going to move on to different things. And obviously he made such an impact and an impression that they're always going to be fans, even if he's not on their team anymore. So I thought that was really neat how they kind of showed that side of it too, because he was there for a very long time. So that's definitely a new transition for him.
Yeah. And I think that says a lot, because football fans don't change teams.
Right.
Period. Right. I was brought up as a New York Jet fan. And I remember as a young girl, my hero was Joe Namath, and he wore number 12, which was my birthday. Mm-hmm. And similar to Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. And, I to this day, I'm still a Joe Namath fan.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm Pittsburgh Steelers over here. So it's, and it just shows how much of a leader Tom is, because he has really just set himself apart from just a team or something like that. He's really just, a model for football players and what he has done for, numerous organizations now.
Let's talk a little bit about possibility and what's possible, because all of a sudden you have, a Super Bowl 55, which you have Tom Brady playing at 43, if I'm right.
Yes.
Which nobody plays professional ball at 43. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like you're in an old age home at 43 as a professional ball player, mm-hmm. against a 25-year-old quarterback.
Right.
And hats off to Mahomes. This is his second Super Bowl at age 25, which is wild.
Right.
But the quarterback is a leader of the team. And let's look at leadership. Yes. And to be that kind of leader at 24 and 25 years old.
It's very impressive. I was reading that Patrick Mahomes was 6 years old when Tom Brady won his first Super Bowl. So, he's had guys like Tom to look up to and other great quarterbacks. And he's obviously, going in that same path. And I'm sure they were saying in the broadcast how they know he's going to be in multiple Super Bowls and is probably going to be the next, person that we see for years and years to come. So he's obviously already found a groove and a great position to lead his team with guys that are going to be, older than him. So I think he's very impressive and handled last night, or whenever you're listening to this, it was recently, we watched it, handled, the loss well, because that's tough too, and that shows great leadership, that going up and congratulating, Tom, and just knowing that, it wasn't their night. So I think he handled that very well.
Yeah. Watching him on the field and watching the game, he fought, he showed up every moment in that game, injured at 100%. And, when we look at leadership and say, people have asked me like, Ivy, what is your biggest leadership lesson? Or, what would be the one thing you say? And I'm like, there's always a lot for me to say. But when you look at the importance of showing up no matter what at 100%, and every play on the field, on the sideline, he was, whenever the camera cut to him, he was 100% for his team. He was 100% working it to the best of his ability. And I think, when it kind of astounded me. I have to tell you, I hit Google and I Googled Patrick Mahomes during the game. And I'm like, wow, he's the same age as my younger son. Mm-hmm. And to think about my, my little boy, right, being a leader of all these men, mm-hmm. and what that takes, I think I'm so impressed by him.
Yeah. And you're right. It's such a great tie into business and how we just need to show up. We need to do our best. We need to have that support around us. And sometimes it's not, we're going to make a decision that it might not be the right one. It's what do we do next? What's the next step? And I know you always say, what can we do? What can you do at this point? And I think that's so important, is just keep going, keep trying. And obviously we saw that displayed in the game, on both sides.
And speaking of young leaders, we can't not talk about Amanda Gorman.
Yes. Yes. So Amanda Gorman, 22 years old, we all saw her at the inauguration reading her poem. And then now I believe the first poet to ever read, and do something like this for a Super Bowl. And her poem was about the 3 honorary captains that they had come in for the game. People doing great work in the world. So it was great to see her and all the opportunities now coming her way, because she is putting her work out there, and she has a great voice and is a great writer. And it's great that poetry, something that isn't widely really seen anywhere, is now coming into very mainstream areas like the Super Bowl.
And I have to tell you, talk about young leadership, her poise, her delivery captivates, truly captivates. Whether you're a fan of poetry or not, every person leans in because she's so captivating. And it's not football or baseball, and it's her form of communication, her form of expression, and she is breaking boundaries with it, which is a beautiful thing to see.
Right. She has wonderful messages. And, messages is another big theme of the Super Bowl with commercials. It's always, what's the messaging going to be? Who's going to have, certain commercials. And I know that we both really liked the commercial from Jeep with Bruce Springsteen. And I know you were reading something really interesting about that you can share with everyone.
I have to tell you. Okay. So I'm watching the game with my family, and all of a sudden somebody's like, "Is that Bruce?" Like everybody puts their phones and their iPads down because, it's a commercial. So you're half in, you're half out. I love the commercials. I'm always an avid commercial watcher. I will tell you, and I will go on record saying I miss the Clydesdales, and I'm ready for the Clydesdales to come back. Budweiser, hear me now. And then all of a sudden we all leaned in. Is that Bruce? Is that Bruce? And there was a great little piece in the Times that the Jeep powers that be, I'm not going to quote name people, but I'll put this as the Jeep powers that be. And so if anybody's not knowing what we're talking about Jeep cars, JEEP, okay? Said, wouldn't it be great to get Bruce to do a commercial? And years back, they started, building a relationship. They reached out to his manager, and they referenced there was many dinners and lunches and cocktails and reach outs, that building a relationship. And for those people who are not Springsteen followers, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do commercials. He's never has. He's always, been staunch against it. Well, Jeep came up with this concept of, uniting our country. And when the Jeep people reached out to Bruce Springsteen's manager and pitched the idea, and he brought it to be, it was an instant yes, instant yes. And it's, it's all about, it's building that relationship. So he took the time to build the relationship, and he also took many, many no's. Bruce doesn't do commercials. No, not Bruce Springsteen. He doesn't do this. And the Jeep camp kept showing up. They didn't take the no. They took it as the not yet, not ready, not now. Right. And what happens when you do that?
Right. And you always say that. And I think that's so important for people to hear in business, because a lot of times you get a no, whether it be about, your services or a speaking gig or whatever it might be. And you do feel defeated in the moment, and you think, oh, well, I'm not going to take that route again, or I'm not going to try that again. And instead it just might not be the right time for that. And look at Bruce Arians coming back into coaching after not coaching. I think he was an analyst on CBS as of last year or the year prior, and now winning, with the Bucks. So the timing, to move back into coaching. So I think that the not yet, not ready, not now is something that isn't talked about enough. And there's definitely strategies to keep going. And if it's right, it's going to click eventually.
And it's so true. It's staying in those conversations. It's 100%. So Gronkowski came back because Brady and Gronkowski stayed in the conversation. right? What's possible when we truly stay in long-term conversations? And I'm curious, and I have no information on this, listeners, so I'm just putting it out. This is my curiosity of the long-term relationship that will begin based on yesterday between Mahomes and Brady.
Right. Yeah, because there's always now going to be this game, and there's always going to be that connection, and you have, two quarterbacks, extremely dedicated to what they do. One, you can't even say at the end of his career, because I think Brady still has many years to go. I really don't. And that's a good point too, in that age in everything it should not be looked at as, oh, I'm at this age, I have to stop, or I have to do this, or I have to pivot or shift, because we've seen that when you are good at what you do, that can continue regardless. And that's, so if you haven't started yet and you're at an age, it doesn't mean you can't start. Maybe not football, but in business, you definitely have the opportunity.
And I think age does not define us. Age defines the amount of years of education we've had, and I'll put this out there, today. I haven't really danced. I've done little bits here and there. And of course I exercise and I take dancing exercise classes and all that stuff. But one of the things is I would like to take ballroom dancing, and I would like to learn to mamba and salsa and do so many things. And I see that as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm ready. So we can approach age any way we want. I look at so many things as creating possibility. And if anything, my age now creates the possibility for me to do that and then enjoy it.
Right. And you have the foundation because you come from a dance background. So the same with business, we start with a foundation of whatever it is that we are doing. And then we can always use that to catapult us into the next chapter, the next step, the next launch, the next product, service, whether we're an entrepreneur or whether we're working, within a corporation. I think it's, get the foundation down, and then you're going to grow and develop and improve from there. So
any, listeners, feel free to drop in. What have you enjoyed about today's episode? What have you enjoyed about looking at current events and everything from, honestly, the Super Bowl to what's going on in the world, to the pandemic, to, the Emmys and the Academy Awards, Tara, I, and the team at Slater Success, we continue every Monday morning to start with our team meetings. And this is not since COVID. This is since there's a team Slater Success of really connecting on a personal basis. And we know what's going on in each other's lives, and we know what's working, and we know what challenges we're facing. And we are 100% stand in supporting one another. And because of that, and because we're interested in the world and interested in what's going on, we talk everything from recipes to football, to series, to kids, to life, and to womanhood.
It's extremely vital right now during the pandemic, especially. And as you said, we've been doing it, but I think if it's not a practice in your business now, take 5 minutes to do the little personal touch at the beginning of a meeting, or hop on an extra Zoom, because I know it's strengthened our team. And I think it will continue to strengthen remote teams as they adjust to what will probably be a long-term look at how business is run and built.
Love that. Listeners, thank you for joining us here today at Her Success Story. Remember to leave a comment below. What was your biggest takeaway from Tara and I's conversation, and what action step would you take forward into your leadership, your business, your world based on popping in today? And of course, hit subscribe. We come into your inbox, your podcast app every Monday morning with fresh content, fresh episode, and many, many, many great interviews. Thanks again for joining us. Bye.
Don't need your approval anymore, 'cause I've got mine.